Sandy Barker, president and co-founder of Gold Rush Cure Foundation. Welcome back to Rush Podcast. If you've missed any of our other episodes, I invite you to go back and check them out. Today is a special episode for our angel families. We at Gold Rush know that while childhood cancer survival rates are good, there are situations where we do find that people lose a child, and it's very hard to talk about. And while most of our podcasts are fun and uplifting, we can't overlook the journey that some of these families go through in facing the unimaginable loss. I am very happy to be joined with Teresa Anthony today, who is the author of not only My 13th Station, but her new book that just came out, which is called Hope Springs from a Mother's Broken Heart. And I would like to talk about that today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like this book is multifaceted. Yes, it's for moms, but I really feel like it's for husbands and friends who know people who have lost a child, and a lot of different situations. So I really do feel like it's a book for a lot of people. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell me about your journalism background. How did you get started?
Okay. I began freelance writing in 1998. It was just on a fluke. I decided one day after watching my daughter take a horseback riding lesson that I wanted to write about how kids respond to direct instruction. There was a lot of squishy stuff in the schools at that time, and I thought I want to show this example that even a shy kid will rise up when they're challenged. So I wrote this little piece, and back then there was no email or any of that we used. So I had to put the stamp on the letter and mail it in. And they published it. It was the Orange County Register. So that was the very first time I was published. And then from then on, it was wonderful because I was given pretty free rein with that publication to just cover like all sorts of topics. And so I was able to just really learn how to be a writer and cover diverse topics. And it was just a really exciting thing. So anyway, then I expanded, started writing for the Washington Post and Investors Business Daily and the LA Times and all sorts of different kinds of publications. And then, and that was pretty much the bulk of it for many years. And then I lost my son. And I lost my son to, sadly, it's just so sad, but it's very common right now, unfortunately. But he was plagued from age 18 and a half on till the end of his life with depression. And then there was insomnia, depression, anxiety. And then he was at college, so he's drinking. So he must have had the genetic propensity for alcoholism, because then he became alcoholic. And it was just the most tragic journey as a parent. But anyway, I'm trying to answer your question, and that is, I lost him to suicide when he was 25 years old. And it was just, there are no words, right? No. But that's when I made the shift to writing almost just, I would say 90% of what my work now is in the mental health and addiction recovery field. So that was in 2014 that I made that change. So now I've built my career on that, and it's my way of honoring my son's memory. It's my way of trying to help others get the help they need before it's too late. So that's kind of in a nutshell how, and I wrote my first book 2 years ago, and that was a memoir. Very painful, very difficult to write, but I wanted to tell his story. Yeah. And it was also, for me, a faith journey, because I had left my my roots 22 years prior and had found my way back to Jesus Christ. And so the message of that book was, guess what, people? We need Jesus in our lives. That's the bottom line here. You can't make it. You can't make it without. And so that was kind of where that book went. And then two years later, here we are, and turning the corner into this year, I didn't know what to do with my year. The pandemic's got us all kind of feeling off balance, and I wanted a new project. That's just kind of, I'm driven that way. And I just thought, what? I'm going to write a book for fellow grieving mothers, but just like you said, Sandy, this book isn't just for the mother.
No.
No one understands what you go through losing a child, and I don't care how the child lost their life.
It's irrelevant.
It is totally irrelevant. So as a woman, there's a different connection, a different experience, and the husband, the surviving children, the sibling of the mother, the best friend of the mother, they can't begin to understand this. So I wanted a book that would allow a woman to not only get validation for what they're going through, but that they could share it with someone, or they, a loved one, who would then have a little more empathy and a little more patience, and not impose their own agenda on the woman. Like, aren't we done with this?
Yeah.
So that's how the book came to be.
And that's incredible. And that was one of my questions. What inspired you to write about this?
Okay.
Because there's so many different, you're so multifaceted that there's so many different topics that you know about.
Right. I could have written a whole book just on depression, right? And not my own, my son's. But boy, I learned so much.
Yeah.
You don't end up taking your life if you aren't in a very, very awful place. And so, yes, there are a lot of things I could have written about. But this is what God told me to write about. It's a funny story, and it's not like he stood in front of me and gave me a commandment on a stone tablet. No, I was just sitting there. I talk to him all the time. Okay, what do I do with my life? And I was just sitting there and wondering this, and all of a sudden it was just in my head. I knew I'm going to draft off that first book. It's a natural evolution from the book, because I cover it a little bit, the grieving process, but I wanted to take what I have learned in my 7.5 years of being on this journey, and this is where it got really cool, so that was the initial desire, was I want to help other ladies. I want to help them, right? And maybe I have a little bit of guidance or advice, little nuggets of wisdom, right, to share. Mm-hmm. But it was my next little God prompt was, oh my gosh, what you have to do, you've gotten to know all of these women, these amazing, strong, courageous women along your journey. And they have done the most amazing things to honor their children. They were my mentors. Mm-hmm. When I met Jody Barber, for example, it was early on. I was raw.
I was hers.
Yeah.
Because I was there the night Jared died.
See? And so
this is how
train. It goes, And so I met several women that first year to 2 years, the first 2 years, that blew me away. Kay Warren and just all of these ladies that, oh my gosh, I would sit there and go, I could never be that strong again. I could never do that, And they didn't know it, but their example it just kind of seeped into my own psyche, and they became my mentors. Yeah. So I decided, hey, these are stories that need to be told and shared, and if anything will give a grieving mother hope, it's going to be knowing that not only the author, okay, she survived, good for her, but all of these other women tell their stories of loss and courage, and then how they managed to dig their way out of that pit, and survive and do something really constructive and wonderful with their lives and honor their child. So that to me was what it was all about. That's why the cover art is really important, if you want to share that, because you see this brightly colored lily, beautiful pink lily coming out of this gray, the lily pads, which to me is perfect. It symbolizes that little spark of hope that is still in each one of us that have lost a child, whether it's to cancer, I have, when Sandy's story came through, because each mother delivered their stories after I invited them and they sent their stories in, your story really, I even wrote you, this is triggering me because,
your sister.
My sister, I lost my sister at a very young age. She was 26 and she lost a battle to breast cancer, which is what led me to dedicate this book to my mother. Boy, and I didn't know then that she would be blazing a trail that I'd be walking someday. And it's just amazing how that works. But basically, in addition to losing my sissy, I also lost, just 9 months after my son's death, I lost the love of my life. Both of us had been in prior marriages, and we'd found each other 4 years prior, and we just treasured each other. He was a great man, very rare find, and I lost him to leukemia also. And so all of the word, it was a different one, AML. I think Christian was ALL. But they're all vicious. And so anyway, so when I was reading your story, I just thought, boy,
that PTSD rears its ugly head. It really does.
Yes, it does. But anyway, so regardless of how the mother lost their child, the book will resonate with someone because there's such a diverse group of types of loss in the book represented. Yeah,
there's 11 stories.
Yes.
And besides Teresa, there's 10 other moms, myself included, that wrote chapters about not only our journey. And what popped in my head when you were talking about that is that it's kind of a cliche, but you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have.
That's right.
Because people, if I had a nickel for every person that said to me, oh, I couldn't have done it.
Right.
I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have gone what you went through.
Be really
and
rich.
I always thought to myself, I didn't know I had the option of opting out. You just do it. You have to do it. I mean, what other choice do you have? You've got a family, you've got to go on for yourself, you've got kids, you've got whatever. And that reading through all these stories really made me.
Yes.
And they all are different.
And that's what I love. It's funny because Sandy, I brought Sandy in late in the game because I had a list of ladies. One of the ladies that had said she was going to write her chapter, she couldn't handle it, and I got it. I get it. It's painful. You just have to open up these wounds and dig back in. It's very hard. And so bless her heart, So I reached out to my friend Jody, and I said, Jody, I'm one mom shy. Do you have anyone to send me to? And she recommended Sandy and said that Sandy's son was lost to cancer. And it's so funny because when the book was finally all put together, the manuscript, and I got to read it from end to end, I thought, wow, okay, God gave me exactly the right mix of women. This is perfect. This is exactly what He wanted this book to be about. I mean, you added just that other dimension that I didn't have. And so about the cause of death. So it's another good thing about this book, I think, that will help is that it's a different experience losing a child to a disease, a natural disease. We have a couple of those in the book, versus and then compared to someone who loses a child suddenly with no warning. We have 2 of those. And then there are several of us in the book who've lost their children to, it's considered stigmatized death, which is overdose or suicide. And that is its own experience. And so I like that we're all in there represented, that any mom will find someone in there that they can relate to with their own grief experience.
There really is a vast array of, there is, but there's also commonalities, among all of them. Tell us a little bit more about Matthew.
Thank you.
Just when he was younger, and I want to know more about him.
Thank you for asking me that. That's when I'll get choked up.
That's okay.
But I brought Kleenex, right? I'll try real hard here. And as a mama who lost a child, there's nothing more wonderful to hear is tell me about your child, right?
Yep.
So anyway, my son was just, and I know it sounds so cliche, but he was just like the perfect kid. He was amazing. He's like your Christian. I mean, when I read about him, I thought they're the same. My son was just this loving, kind, sensitive soul. He was a top athlete. He was smart. He had wonderful friends. He was tall, handsome. He was just any mother's dream, just thoughtful and giving and wonderful to his sisters. And he was also, later in his life, an amazing daddy. He was a father to a little girl named Grace. And so I got to see this person, this beautiful person, a wonderful, just beautiful son, all of a sudden change and when he was 18 and a half. But that part, that's well represented in the book. But his youth, he was just the kind of kid that when you're walking to school, I would walk him to school, say in first grade, he would be, wait, Mom, I need to get something. And he'd be climbing up a hill to grab some yellow daisies off the hill to give to his teacher. He was that kind of a guy. Or another story that is in the memoir is he caught a snake. It was on the neighbor's yard. He said, Mom, help me get the snake. So we put it in a box with some grass.
You said yes? You're
rats.
a great mom.
I know. And so we had it in the garage. We didn't know what to feed it. So we went to the pet store. Pet store guy says, okay, you have to feed it baby mice or fish. And we had pet rats.
Oh, no.
So we couldn't do the mice. It was just too barbaric. And so we get this bag of dozen fish, and we go home. And my son was 10 at the time. And we're in the garage, and we had to get a fish out of this bag to give to the snake. And he's like hesitating. And anyway, he finally said, hey, Mom, can we let the snake go and keep the fish? And that's who he was. Just this warm-hearted kid. So we kept the fish. We had to go back to the pet store and buy all the stuff for fish. But anyway, but thank you.
That's his heart.
He was just an amazing young man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what made it so tragic. Was there wasn't any problem. We
Mm-hmm.
never had troubles with him ever. And then to see everything just fall apart, and you have no power.
Yeah.
That's
mental illness too.
And that's the thing. So when you're dealing with an illness like Gina's story with her little boy in the book, he was only 10, and your story, you guys were side by side with your children, battling their disease together like partners, and you were there, as the staunch supporter. And this is a different kind of a beast, what people that have lost a child like I did, to these kind of afflictions, because this disease is something you can't put your finger on and you can't control or fix. There's no medicine, so it's a different story, a different response later to that, meaning feelings of guilt, like questioning, was I enabling? Did I become codependent? Did I actually aid in his illness? Those kind of things. So. Yeah.
I think the guilt thing, no matter what it is, you're going to have guilt. And it sucks. Guilt sucks because I know, my mind knows, I left no stone unturned.
No.
Every single night, I have a medical background. I was researching stuff. But still, my heart always is there something I could have done. That I missed. And my mind knows that there wasn't.
Right.
But guilt's a hard part of as a mom, the after effect. It's challenging. So I know that you did lose your sister of cancer, and I know that this book was dedicated to your mama. Has she been able to read any of it? Have you read it? What's been her reaction?
So this was really important. My mom.
You were on it to get it out.
Gosh. I asked these girls because I was like camp counselor with 10 women and trying to help them through the process, and it was hard because it's so emotional to write these stories. But I was under this pressure because my mother had been placed on hospice. She has bladder cancer, and she's 88, almost 89, and the clock was ticking, and I just. I can't tell you the amount of sleep I lost during the spring and early summer, and just so afraid I wasn't going to get the book to her in time, to see her dedication and for her because she's so proud of me, and I wanted her to see it. And so it turned out, then we had all sorts of little other obstacles to overcome with Amazon's technology and stuff. But it finally got published, and yes, she's read it. Yay. She was very, very moved that the book was dedicated to her. And
she didn't know?
I had mentioned it to her, but at this age, things go in and out, so I didn't know how much she'd remember. But she did. She remembered, and she was just really touched by that, and she loved it. She said, this book is going to help a lot of ladies.
And it will. And it will. Yeah. What you just said about when you asked me to do my chapter, and I was touched and I was hopeful that my story could help other moms that have lost a child walking in the same shoes. What I didn't expect. I'm thinking about it. Look at me.
Honey.
Was I think a lot of us in the book, we're doing a lot in whatever area we've lost our child. I speak at so many different things. I do. And it's to the point where I not that you don't feel it.
Right.
You never become immune to feeling, your heart being pulled.
Never.
But there's something about, you get through. Okay.
Yeah, right.
There's something about taking it and dissecting every aspect of your child's journey and putting it onto paper that you are literally reliving it, all the hard stuff that you've kind of neatly tucked in your mind.
Yes.
And you kind of keep it there, compartmentalize it, because it is so painful.
Right.
And so I did have to stop a few times, and luckily I had my mom helping me, because she saw, I would call her and say, I don't know if I can do this. I was crying, and just going back to remembering stuff that was so painful.
I know.
And I know you talk about this in the book, that every mom,
all of us
did have the same experience.
Yeah. Now I crossed that bridge 2 years ago when I wrote the book, which is a 370-page book that I had to condense down to 11 pages. His story for this book, right? So I had a head start, and I went through that brutal period. I mean, there were weeks writing that memoir. I was sick, physically ill. I'd have to go back to bed. I couldn't do it. I had to take 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
So I already knew what each of you were going to be facing in doing this project. And that's why I just could only give you just tender encouragement.
Yeah, you did.
And just be there for you as much as I could, because I just knew what it took out of me.
Yeah.
And, you're right. In order for us to move forward in our lives, we have to adjust our mindset, and that means we can't keep that front and center in our heads all day long, or we won't make it.
You can't function.
No, you can't function, and you're of no use to anyone else in that state. So you're right. It's this little compartment of pain, this little pain box that is stuck there, and we hide it away. That's why chapter 1 in the book, I named that book very appropriately, Day in the Life of a Grieving Mother, because I think that's powerful, because people can only guess. They can only imagine. And some don't even want to think about it. It's so awful. Yeah. And I wanted them to understand this is kind of, it's my little story, but it's, I'm sure, very typical of all of us, how a day is with that in our hearts. But I mention that I go about my day. I'm productive. I work hard. I interact. I transact. I see friends. And I'm not boo-hooing my way through my days, but there are little moments during each day that, just like passing the picture of a child, and or something will just trigger a memory, and you can't avoid those. No. It's just part of the process.
Yeah. My husband so astutely calls them landmines. When you're doing something, just going on your day, and then something triggers one, you did not see it coming, and it's like, boom.
Yeah.
And those are really hard.
Yeah.
They're really hard because you can't prepare for them.
No.
You know there's certain things that do cause them, but then there's certain things that...
Complete shockers. Like for me, and one of the early on ones for me was just walking past, this was probably within the first year after Matthew died, walking past a Little League field, because he played baseball. He was an amazing baseball player. So I walked past a Little League field, all these little guys, second graders playing ball. It just completely did me in. It devastated me. I mean, you can't predict that that's going to happen. And anything, like driving past his favorite restaurant, or just anything. It's just amazing how many things can get you that you're, like you said, you're not prepared for.
You're not prepared for.
They are landmines because they level you when they come.
Yeah.
Another thing.
And we still get back up.
Yes, we do. We have a choice. See, even though, yes, we have our mortgages to pay and we've got other children or whatever we've got going on in our lives, Some people, sadly, do choose to be the lady in the bathrobe in the corner who kind of gives up on life. And I didn't want to be that by choice. That was not going to be my legacy and my son's. I knew he would never want his mom to give up her own goals, my God-given gifts, and to use them still. That's what he would want. Yeah. So there is a matter of choice to it also. I'm sad for when someone takes that route, but I always pray that someday they'll wake up and say, I'm done with throw off that bathrobe. I'm ready to live again, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, we all know there were days we didn't want to get out of bed.
Please.
Months even, you know, but yeah, what you said is we make that choice because we know that's not what our children would want, and that's not good for our other kids and good for us, you know. So there is a big diversity in the moms. How did you find the moms that were in here?
Wow, you know what? That's where God just leads you. You know, it's an interesting story. So I mentioned that early on, and my son had only been gone 3 weeks when I was, Gina had a Facebook group called Grieving Mamas. And somebody reached out and told me about Gina's group. It was a Facebook group, so I went online, joined it, and kind of mingled with those ladies. And this is right away, right? Well, they invited me over to a dinner, and Gina was there. It was at someone else's house. And that's when I met them in person, the women in the group. And I was just blown away at, wow, they're so together and poised and intelligent, and I'm a wreck, you know. And it was just amazing. But that's how I met some of them. And then through that, one of the ladies invited me to attend an event at Saddleback Church where Kay Warren had initiated because she lost her son to suicide as well. And so it was the first event. It was the flagship event. And so I went there and met a bunch of other ladies, including the lady I mentioned in the book, who had set up all her goods. She'd done all of these written materials, literature and things to help people manage their grief journey after losing someone. She lost a son to suicide. And then I did get to meet Kay Warren, and that she's just a very strong woman. And then after that, someone said, you know, because my son had a substance problem with alcohol, they said, come and join us at this community meeting. It's at this church, and because it's out of control. So I went there and I met, I don't know if you know Veronica Eckert, but she had lost her son that summer also. But I also met Jody Barber. And oh my gosh, you know, just this cute little petite brunette up there, and just as calm as a cucumber, sharing about her son Jared, and who she lost. He was only 19, and I was so impressed. And so this is how it went. So one would introduce me to another, and then eventually. It's hard for me to even remember. I think most of them were all through these major connections. And then she introduced me to you.
Yeah. You know, it's Evan, Gina's son, was battling ALD when Christian was battling cancer. And somehow we had mutual friends, so we were emailing each other and all that. We met each other for the first time. We felt like we knew each other for years at Christian Celebration of Life. They attended it just to be there. And then Jody's story, my son, Garrett, played baseball with her other son, Blake, since they were little kids. So we've known them for so long. And the day that Jared passed away, she called me. And I went over there the day he passed away. And I told her, because we were a few years ahead, you know, and I said, I know you. And this isn't ending here. I feel like my childhood cancer plight is going to be your prescription drug abuse plight. And it is. I mean, she is a force to be reckoned with, man. She's just, she has saved countless lives, you know.
I can't even,
she's
there
amazing.
are no words. I mean, she is so unique. The woman will get in her car at night and drive around and find these homeless, addicted young people and talk to them and offer them clothing, or what do you need? What can I help you with? And offer, always invite them, if you want help, let me know.
Yep.
I've just got nothing but amazing appreciation for what she has brought to this whole awful epidemic with the addiction nightmare. Really, I mean, she is just, and a heart of gold, just a heart of gold. And so, just like you, you know, it's amazing how everybody's got something, and I wanted that point made in the book also. Not everyone has it in them. They don't have maybe the inclination to go all out like Jody, or to start a foundation, or whatever, whatever undertaking they might want to do in honor of their child. The littlest things in memory of your child can be so powerful. It could be as small as, you know, cooking their favorite meal on their birthday, or painting rocks with their names, or, you know, like Maggie's garden. It doesn't have to be some big grandiose
gesture.
Yes. Yeah. It just has to come from the heart, something that, you know, that honors your child and maybe brings attention to their memory a few minutes out of a busy week, right? I
100% agree. And having a foundation, my advice when someone loses a child, I tell them don't do anything for 2 years. Don't do anything for 2 years. Focus on your family. Right. Focus on your healing.
That's very smart.
If you still want to start a foundation after that, go for it. Yeah. But don't impulsively do that, because that time, and it's a lot of time, is better spent on your healing and your family's healing.
I agree.
I'm going to read a couple little excerpts from stuff, but this just, when you were talking about the moms, when envisioning this book, I saw each mother painting her own unique portrait of resilience in the wake of tragic loss. Because each contributing mother has her own unique voice, personality, and perspective, and with a variety of causes of death among children, I'm convinced that any grieving mother reading this book will be able to personally connect with at least one of them. And that's kind of like what you just said. Yeah. I agree with it. I mean, another thing that you brought up that had me in tears, but it was poignant, was the part where you talked about the pain in the mother's eyes. Now I'm doing it. And you said how you were putting on your makeup, and you still, even after putting on your makeup, you could still see the sadness in your eyes. And you said, I feel like mothers can pick each other out in a crowd, you know, and I don't know why, but that, because I do know other mothers that it's happened to, and for some reason,
there's something in the eyes, and that's what I said. You know, they may be different colors: blue sad eyes, brown sad eyes, but the grieving mother has sorrowful eyes, and that doesn't mean we walk around with a sad face. It just means that our eyes are just different. Different. And and I guess being one of them. I knew exactly what you were talking about, you know, and it may be hard for other people to kind of get it, but and if it is, you're blessed. There's another mom talked about. This is a mom's view. Her death has not only talking about her daughter's passing. Her death has not only changed who I am, but how I react to the world. I have gained a stronger faith in God, a tender compassion for others who have experienced the loss of a child, and more empathy for others in general. These qualities have given me a new perspective, seeing life through the eyes of another. A favorite quote is, "Be kind, for everyone is fighting a hard battle." I thought that was, you really do have that different perspective after, you know. It's true. And I want to say something about that mother, Sam. Her nickname is Sam, and her daughter was Mia. That picture of them together makes me cry every time I look at it. Every time. Sam offered a whole bunch of resources, books that helped her. Each mom, that's again another little gift from this book. Each mother is coming from a different perspective, different personality, and all of that. And they have different tools for how they've managed the grieving process. So it's a nice collection. Sam offered some book titles that have helped her get through this. Other mothers had some other book titles. I'm thinking of Karen. She lost her son to suicide. There were some books that helped her. Others worked on projects, art projects. And then one mother, Elizabeth, actually out of the blue, started painting in the middle of the night, just was inspired to paint, which she had never done.
In the middle of the night. Went in the garage.
Yeah, went in the garage, got out some old watercolors, and you should see her amazing gallery. It's just mind-blowing when you see her work. So anyway, the way we cope, for me, it was writing. Mm-hmm. Writing helped me. It's my way of getting it out of here, and and so anyway, I just wanted to make that point when you brought up Sam's little comment there. It's so right on, and it made me think, yes, and she also gave some great verses, inspiring verses and stuff, and the book is really just so full of beautiful
It is. Were you surprised by all the commonalities? Or were you like, no, I knew there were going to be, because even though each journey's different, I found that literally every 11 of us, there were some things that were just across the board.
Yes, it's true. I loved that because you could see a pattern, not only how the grief process progresses, kind of the continuum of grief. There's a predictable kind of pattern that you kind of pick up in each story as you work through it. But also, I couldn't ignore the fact that we all have a strong faith. Everyone professes a faith. And again, different Christian walks. I'm a Catholic. There's all different. We have a great mix in this group, which is great because it's not about that. It's not, mine is better than yours or any of that. It's about leaning on our God, that's who we lean on for strength. That's who we derive our strength every day from to get through these days. And it was a theme through every single one of our chapters.
Yeah, it was. And that was my next question. What were the main things that stood out to you that we all kind of said helped us? And, it doesn't negate the pain we feel in losing our child. Right. But there were common things that we all said, okay, this is what we had to rely on.
I agree. I think a lot of us, I think the faith was, to me, the number one thread that I couldn't ignore. But also things just like self-care and getting therapy if you need it. I know I needed it. So just connection with our loved ones and staying involved and engaged and stuff. Finding good books that touch our souls, that help us through. I don't know. I just found that the moms were very proactive in general and not passive about managing the grief journey. Yeah.
I feel like the biggest one in reading them all was probably faith. Yeah. And I'm going to, a little caveat here, and transparency. I don't know about the rest of the moms. I certainly didn't have the faith of Goliath the whole time.
Yes, true.
I didn't. I did not have the faith of Goliath. But when it happened, it's crying out to God to just give my family, peace and comfort, and then not wanting to talk to him. Yeah. Because I'm so hurt that Christian had to endure what he went through, and that this was the outcome. And I remember in counseling, and a lot of this is so hard because there goes the guilt again. Right. I'm mad at God or whatever, however we want to put it. And it's one of those things where I remember the counselor said, you know what? He gave you the love for Christian. Yeah. Do you think he doesn't understand? Yeah. He's still here whenever you want to talk to him. Don't get that guilt out of here. Yeah. That is not from him. And he understands. Yeah. And that did help because but there were times I didn't want to pray. I didn't want because I was just I just was mad or hurt and any of that, and I think a lot of us were.
And there were days I didn't want to wake up in the morning. Now that's not from God. No. You are so in such immense pain. You just want to I remember I put it in my little chapter. I had 2 boxers, dogs, and I'd take them for their walks every night. And I would pray, Lord, please, will you just send a truck careening off the road and take me out? I couldn't endure it.
The pain is intense,
And that's why I think that another woman early in the grief journey will see validation here. They're going to say, oh my gosh, this is how I feel. See, I'm not crazy. And so anyway,
I agree.
There's, it's funny, I didn't have anger at God until a year later after I lost them both. And it was just too much, you know. Yeah. And I was at the gravesite of my man. His name was Mike. I was at his gravesite and for his birthday, and I laid down on his grave on my back, facing up, and just screaming, God, how could you take him from me? I mean, screaming. I was so mad, and that was the only time I ever felt just pure anger, you know, toward God. Mm-hmm. Mostly I try to remind myself that God never, ever, nowhere in Scripture does it say that we'll have heaven on earth. We are from our fallen parents set us up for every kind of pain. And it's just, you know, we will get that someday when we get to heaven. But here, because we're mortal and sinful beings, we have to live through death. But I get it. I mean, we're mad when he doesn't listen to our prayers. You know, when I was I was with Mike at the hospital the day my son took his life, and he was getting ready for his bone marrow transplant. And I got the call that, I knew what was going on. So anyway, I had an hour and 15-minute drive to get to the hospital. And I almost fainted on the road. It was horrible. But all the way, you should have seen me. It was just this, don't take my son, don't take my son, don't take my son. I mean, the whole way. And he did, you see. So I was mad about that, how he could do that. But
yeah, but I do still feel like in the end, we relied on our faith. Yeah. I personally, the night Christian passed away, this is how I posted on his Caring Bridge and social media that he had passed. It was this verse, 2 Timothy 4:7-8. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. That fit.
Perfect.
It fit perfect, but it also fit actually several. And another mom in her chapter wrote Revelation 21:4, He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and the death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning nor crying nor pain anymore. Right. So I do feel like that was probably the biggest commonality is, that kind of thing. Yeah. What I like about this book too is it's not just about moms. I want to read a couple of things. One is we talk about siblings. Because sibling loss is so misunderstood, and siblings have a very special part in my heart. Yeah. Because sibling loss is so misunderstood, messages of you should be over it by now are common. There's no timeline. It takes time, lots of time. Yeah. You don't get over it. You create your life and move on when you're ready, but you never forget your sibling, and they will always remain a part of you. Yeah. There is another. Now let's talk about friends.
And just to dovetail off of that for a sec, my daughters were on a little thread together, text thread. And it's amazing how often this happens. Just last night, my youngest sent me a little text saying, I'm making tuna casserole for dinner tonight with a blue heart, because that was Blue. Matthew's, my nickname was Blue. And then his favorite, isn't that the funniest thing of all things, when I cooked meals when he was little, tuna casserole. But so out of the blue, you see, this is a sibling who's thinking of her brother, and all of a sudden was craving this tuna casserole. So anyway. They're
still with him. Yes. Yeah, they're for sure.
Connected.
For friends, you talk about my normal friends were there for me in the beginning, but they just didn't really understand what I was going through. I even lost one of my best friends because she just wanted me to be me again. One of the mom talks about. And then this is kind of everybody. And this was really good advice. You've gone through a devastating life event. In the early days and weeks following the loss of your son or daughter, you're in shock, you're depressed, and you may even be traumatized. Your loved ones will have to understand that you feel crushed at the moment and need sufficient time to be able to build yourself back up. How much time exactly? No two grieving mothers will heal in the same way, nor within the same time frame. I thought that is really, really important for people to remember, because I think we all felt that that pressure to be, because people don't want to hear about it anymore. They want us to be fun and happy and all that, when it is hard to see. It's good to see that life's going on around us, but it's also hard because we're not getting, we're still struggling.
Right. And that I made that point in that chapter, and also kind of here and there I reiterated it, and that's why I'd love for like the husband of the wife to read this, because I think they just need an inside track. They need to understand, as much as you want your wife to be her old self and be happy, and you got to give her space. You got to let her work through it, and just try to be patient and understand that it's just such a huge wound that's trying to heal, and it takes time. Yeah. So
you have so many good nuggets in here of, we're talking about the really heavy stuff, but there's a lot of good stuff. There's one where you talk about joy. Yeah. Seek joy in the things that you might have buried while deep in grief, like your passion for art or music, for photography, travel, writing, or theater. Seek joy in nature, in the sparkling ocean, colorful sunsets, and twinkling stars. Seek joy in your spouse, your children, your grandkids, your best friends, and your pets. But mostly seek joy in your faith. And it's, you at first it's hard to do that. Yes. But then you really do learn how to do this. Mm-hmm. And for me, because I do interact with so many families that some have lost kids, or a friend whose friend lost their child, that kind of thing. I really do feel like this book isn't just for moms, because it is for the husband, so he can kind of, how do I help my wife? It is for the mom, how do I help my siblings and my husband? It is for the friend, how do I help my so, and I don't think it's just reading through this. Christian died 13 and a half years ago, and I still got a lot out of it, and so I don't think it's just for newly moms who newly lost their children,
because there's a lot of residual stuff that hangs with you for years. I know, like we mentioned PTSD. Yep. I'll never get past that. It's just going to be part of me. But some of the advice I wrote in this book, I take it to heart, because it, like, just taking care of myself, meaning making sure I get exercise, those kind of little things that you do just to care for your own health, in the end, it helps your mental health too. Yes. So
I love that that's so much more out there now. Yeah. And it didn't used to be, and it's an epidemic. Yeah. And so it is great that it's being discussed. Yeah. And, I know from all my DC stuff, funding is being, put there. Yeah. Because they're realizing this needs to be addressed. Yeah. It's true. Stop stereotyping, the people who are suffering with that, and let's start trying to help them, and that's important.
And going back also to your point about seeking joy, finding joy again in life, and I even made a comment about my little turning point moment where I was dancing in the kitchen. I was cleaning house, and I always used to turn on music when I did that just to make it go faster, and I stopped doing it. I stopped wanting to hear music. It was all part of the grief. And then that day, I put on some oldies. It was like old Motown stuff from the 70s, and I was dancing, and I was surprised and like, should I be dancing? It was kind of like that. Yeah. But I think we all have, no matter what we've gone through, this horrible thing, it's buried in us, but it's wanting to come out. It wants to come back to the surface, So when we start seeing the signs that it's trying to come out, let's aid that. Let's aid that and not suppress it,
Well, you give so many good advices, like getting out and taking a walk. So many things. Yeah. And so while there's a lot of this book it's heavy. Oh, it's heavy. It's also a wealth of information on stuff maybe we did that we wish we didn't do, but also stuff that is helpful. And it doesn't negate the hard part of it, but it does give you tools to go, okay, I'm going to start doing this. And if baby steps.
Yeah. And if nothing else, like you said, it doesn't matter how much time has passed since you lost your child. Yeah. seeing these examples, and you are one of them, of these women, how strong they are and how they were able to carry on with their life's mission, their role as a parent, whatever it is, after such a significant loss. To me, that is so inspiring.
Yeah.
I mean, one story after another. I mean, like I said in the little preface to the stories, I said, I hope you all find a sense of fellowship with these women after you read their story, and you do.
You do.
I felt like you guys were my best friends.
You really do.
I honestly felt like we had this beautiful, like, I don't know, there is a fellowship you feel with the other mothers that, gosh, you just want to hug every one of them and say, hey, everything you said was right on.
Well, and this being your book, you start when you introduce all of us, and at the top in bold it says tread tenderly.
Yes.
And I felt like that was a hug from you because you knew how hard this was on all of us. And you actually discuss it, that this was not easy for any of us to go through, and but we did it because in hopes of helping other people.
See, and that's the thing.
I thought that was sweet.
Usually when you have a contributor to a book, like if someone contributes a chapter or a section or just an essay or whatever, then you note that usually in the front of the book, acknowledging this person for their contribution. That wasn't enough. I needed to say something about this. This was Herculean, effort for all of you to really reach back down in there, and the pain, those moments, and just their child, I don't know, it was just such a big thing to do, and that's why I wanted a page dedicated that would explain that, and just give it more than just
to let people know.
Thanks for the contribution. No, it was way more than that.
Yeah. Well, that was very sweet. I want to read something, and this is actually for everybody out there, in regards to talking to a mother who has lost their child. And one of the moms put this in her chapter: don't be afraid to speak my son's name. If it brings tears to my eyes, it's not because you reminded me that he's gone. For this I could never forget. It's because you remembered him, his life, and honored his memory simply by saying his name. I've read that a million times. It still touches my heart. And the biggest gift you could give any mom or dad or family who's lost their child is talking about them. Share a funny story. I get people asking me all the time, oh my gosh, what do I say to my wife? What do I say to my friend who's lost her child? That's why I feel like this book is helpful for so many, but talk about them. Talk about their child. And share a memory that is special to you, and just a trait about them, because it is a priceless gift you can give them.
I have a website and I write blogs. Usually once a month I'll write a blog on a topic that's related to my own journey. And I think it was July, I wrote a blog about just that topic. Please don't forget my child, and that's actually my son in that picture. I normally use stock images, but I picked a picture of my son playing baseball. But that was exactly the message, what you just said, that there's no better music to a grieving mother's ears than for someone to say their name, and even just dropping it and, oh yeah, I remember when he did this, and it's just the most beautiful thing to hear their name again, especially when it's sometimes been many months since you had last. So, and you think people forgot him. And you don't want that, and so it is such a great gift. Okay, so final comments on the book. What do you want people to know that we haven't talked about? What do you want to share about it that we haven't discussed yet? Well, we covered a lot. I would just, I guess maybe I am repeating myself with this because we did cover a lot of ground. I would just want to say that if you know of someone who has lost a child to cancer or any other cause, this is like a field guide for that person to kind of walk through the landmines, to navigate the landmines. And it's not foolproof, it's not a silver bullet, but it really is, it's very real, authentic beautifully. These women wrote beautiful chapters, and they each offer a lot of great advice and little nuggets of wisdom on each of them that will help the recipient of the book. It will help them. And I guess for me, it's just, I wish someone had handed me this book when I was early on. It would have helped me so much to have that resource. It's a resource. It's actually, it's a very soulful book. It's not light reading, but it's rich and it's soulful. You'll get something out of this book. Yeah. You will walk away from this feeling like, wow.
Yeah. Anybody who reads it.
Anybody.
Whether it's the friend or the husband, anybody who does, it'll give you more tools.
They'll just be blown away at these women. That's what my takeaway is this, you know. I wrote the book. I mean, I started the project and wrote the book, but that middle section is all about these women. And to me, it's just so amazing to see the strength deep within a woman that's so wounded, but she still summons it up and was able to express this pain and then also give just this beautiful, inspiring ray of hope.
Well, thank you for writing this book, because you're one of the moms. You know, it was every bit as hard for you as it was for all of us. It's not easy to talk about. Right. But you did it because you care enough about other people who are walking in our shoes to want to give them resources that will help their journey a little bit easier than what ours was.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I appreciate you for doing that, because I know this wasn't easy, and those of us who got stalled because of emotional distress.
You were not alone. Gina had...
You were on us.
She was like the last guy, and she was one of the earliest ones that I had asked, but Gina with her little boy Evan that she lost, he was only 10. Well, it's heavy. She finally said, okay, I have to leave town.
Yeah, she did.
She had to leave town and kind of hole up in a little place up Northern California to be able to think and write, you know.
But you spearheaded it. You put it together. The words you have in here, the suggestions, everything it's very poignant.
Yes, well, I think it will touch a lot of people, and I also have to say that each of these women, I would say the majority of them, have an enterprise. I'm not saying a money-making enterprise, but they might have some project that they've tied into this. You know, if it's a scholarship, like Suzanne has a college scholarship in her son's name, or you with your wonderful Gold Rush Foundation. These kinds of things, Maggie with her amazing support group Solace that she's put together, that now she's spreading out to different towns, and Jody, we know her amazing stories and her documentaries. Anyway, I think it's also really important to mention that these women have spearheaded projects that are beautiful, and it would just make me so happy if the reader would just click the link if they got the ebook, you know, or check that website out, or, you know, I don't know. I just think it's a great thing to support these women, and it doesn't have to be with money. I'm just saying, just send them a note saying, oh my gosh, what a fantastic job you're doing for others, and, you know, if you ever need someone to help march at one of your rallies, I'm here. Here's my email, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I mean, those of us who are doing stuff, and it isn't for everyone, I'm the first to admit, because it is a lot of work, but we're not, you know, we're not getting paid. We're not, we're doing this to reach back out to other people who are walking in our shoes, because we want to make this journey easier for you. And so anyway, I highly recommend you getting this book, Hope Springs from a Mother's Broken Heart. It's a great resource, and you can get on Amazon and all different resources.
Yeah, Barnes & Noble. Yeah, Apple only in the ebook version on Apple. So, and really, this is a book you just want to hold it in your hands. But I mean, some people love the e-readers, so there's an option for them as well.
Yeah. So, encourage you to get it. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I knew it was going to be, you know, a little bit emotional, but so important.
Oh,
you
gosh.
know. So
I'm just so glad I got to meet you and know your story and your son's story, and just seeing, I got to watch one of the videos of when you give that gift, the gold rush, the gift.
Pot of gold.
Yes, a pot of gold to a family. It is the most beautiful thing. Oh my gosh, I was bawling my eyes out. And just seeing it's just a beautiful thing to see what you're doing for these families. Oh my gosh, what a gift you are.
Well, it's joint effort. Last comment you want to say to a mom who is going through this. What word of encouragement do you have for her as we sign off?
Oh my goodness, that's a hard one actually. I just want to say to believe in your heart, even though it looks so grim. You have to believe that you're going to survive. You're going to survive, and you will someday be telling your own story to somebody else and helping them.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to say.
Yeah, that's a great exit. And there you go. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time.